I like the way you fold them like your secrets. I'm going to read them out loud. You don't really need to hide them. Oh, here we have a multiple choice. I can do that. How do you use double binds in therapy? Well, to begin with, I don't do therapy. That's the first thing. So I don't use them at all in therapy because I don't believe in it. Therapy is based on the idea that what you do is you fix people who are broken. And I think you educate people who are stupid. It's a slightly different approach. That I think people have personal problems because they won't stop it. And they don't stop it because they don't know how. And so if you educate them in how to it, because we're all stupid about certain things. And unless we can accept and embrace our stupidity, we get to keep being stupid for the rest of our lives. And like one of the stupidest thing you can do is keep going to therapy if you don't change. I know people who have been in therapy for 25 years with the same therapist, and all they do is get worse and worse and worse. I mean, think of guys like Woody Allen. Here's a creative guy who's been in psychoanalysis almost all of his life. You know, and he's still a fucking neurotic mess. He won't even go to the Academy Awards and get his own Academy Award because he's afraid to leave New York City. But yet, you know, he's really rich, but he's dating his stepdaughter. And I don't know about you guys, I think with 550 billion people on the planet, you can find someone else to date other than your own stepdaughter. I don't know about you guys, I'd say that's above and beyond anything else the fault of his therapist. Any therapist who treats somebody for that long should be able to get them to have more sense than that. And, you know, especially when you consider that little act cost him a divorce that cost him in the neighborhood of something like $90 million. That's a pretty expensive date, don't you think? I mean, you know, I've gone on some dates that were pretty expensive, but I've never really even exceeded $500, you know. But double binds, to me, double binds are, to start with, are an interesting thing because double binds I use to blow people out of their model of the world. But you see, the nice thing is you have to be able to understand that double binds are a function of the fact that belief systems and language interact in a certain kind of way. The very first double bind that I ever successfully slammed somebody against the wall with is in the structure of magic. There was a woman, her name was Phyllis, and Phyllis was a real basket case. to tell you the truth. Phyllis was a mess, and she was somebody else's client, and all she did was cry. The guy called up and said, I have a client, and all she does is come in and cry. I can't get her to talk. And I said, what do you mean you can't get her to talk? I mean, that should be the easiest thing in the world to do. And he said, well, she won't stop crying. And I said, well, what do you say to her? Do you tell her to shut up? You know, and he said, no, I just keep asking her what's wrong, and she keeps crying more and more. And I said, well, maybe you shouldn't ask that. And he said, look, you know, I've been a therapist for 25 years. You're not even 25 years old. And I said, yeah, but you're calling me and asking for help. You know, I said, one of us has this screwed up. I said, why don't you just send her over to me? And I told him, I said, look, I'm doing a group session tonight. I have a bunch of people, and I said, and she'd be a good demonstration subject. Why don't you bring her with you and bring her in? And so he came in, and he sat down, and this woman thought it was group psychotherapy, and it wasn't. It was an experimental hypnosis group. But it was all I had available at the time. But she came in, she sat down, and she immediately began to cry. She did not cry driving there. She did not cry walking in the door. And she did not cry until I sat down and said, okay, let's start. And the minute I said, let's start, she burst out into tears. This person had obviously rehearsed being in psychotherapy, that she'd been to group psychotherapy, and that's what you do, especially in those days. This was, you know, in the early 70s. And she started to cry, and I turned around and I looked at her and I said, excuse me, I want you to shut up right now and knock that crap off. I said, you know, you're not in your therapist's office. I said, you're sitting in my living room, which is where this group was. And I said, and people do not. And people don't do that here. And as suddenly her heart stopped. Anyway, so I turned around and I said, people just don't do that here. It's impolite. And she literally stopped and looked at me and she said, I'm sorry. And I said, you should be. And I said, I know your therapist brought you here. I said, but we're here because we're studying things. But I said, I want to ask you, I said, you know, your therapist told me you cry all the time. And I said, but that's because you're in therapy. You're not in therapy here. So you're not allowed to cry. And tears began streaming down her face. You could see she really wanted to cry, but she was terrified. And I walked over and I said, look, I said, you know, I said, I don't understand, you know, what you know, how you could possibly, when you're in therapy, i.e. not now, you know, that you could sit around and cry all the time rather than see if you could get through your problems. I said, you know, you're paying to sit in a room and cry with somebody. I said, you could sit home and cry for free. You know, I said, it just seems to me fucking idiotic. And I said, and maybe he's willing to waste his time and yours, but I'm not. And she went, yes, sir. And I said, okay. I said, now, I said, what the hell is going on? And she said, well, you know, I understand my problems. I've been in therapy for many years. And I said, well, that's nothing to brag about. I said, you're obviously still a fucking basket case. And she said, well, she said, you know, she said, I feel like a doormat. And I looked down at the mud on my shoes and was somewhat tempted. And I said, a doormat? And she said, well, she said to me, she said, I live with 3 other people and I have to do everything they say. And I said, you do? I said, what do you live in, an S&M bondage house? And she said, no, she said, you just don't understand. And I said, well, that's my forte. I try not to understand stupidity. And she said, well, it's not like that. She said, when I was a young girl, she said, my mother wanted to take me to the store, and my father begged me to stay home, but he was drunk. And when he got drunk, he always hit me, and he hit my mother, and I just wanted to get out of there. And I told him no, and I left. And when I came back, he was dead, laying on the floor with his hand 3 inches from the telephone. And I swore I would never say no to anyone ever again. So my life is, I have to do everything my boyfriend says. I get pushed around by everyone, but I just can't say no. Now, I knew I had her at that moment. She was fucked. Man, she gave it away. She handed it on a platter. Her therapist sat there like that, looking at me like, see? And I thought, you dumb fuck. I said, man, this woman's easy. And I looked at her and I said, okay, ma'am, tell me no. She looked at me and she goes, no, I can't. What did I do? Keeled over on the floor. Should have seen her. She went white as a fucking sheet. And I sat up and I said, excuse me, it doesn't happen twice in a lifetime. Timing is everything. And then I said to her, I said, okay, now, tell me no, you won't listen to me. And she goes, no, I am going to listen to you. And I said, okay. I said, tell your therapist, no, you're going to cry all the time, and you're not going to change. And she goes, no, I'm not. And I said, here, you said no like a half a dozen times. I said, I guess this problem's over. And she went, no, it's not. And I said, well, what do you mean it's not? I said, all we got to do is to be able to give you a new sensation. And so then I told her, I said, look, what I want you to do is what we're going to go through is we're going to go through and erase personal history. Now, I know that when you erase a personal history, it doesn't mean that you have amnesia for it, by the way. Erasing personal history simply means that what you do is you take the impact out of it. Because lots and lots of the things that people go through in life have leftover kinesthetic residue. The fact that this person let people tell her wash, she told me, she said they make her wash all the dishes, clean the house, wash their cars. They revel in the fact that she was a wimp. Now, after that day, there's two things I have to accomplish. One, I have to get her through the belief that says she can't say no. And then the other thing is she has to have some chutzpah. That's all there is to it. That's a Yiddish word for, somebody who can stand up for themselves and, and in appropriate ways. And with tonality and a look that says inside of other people's heads, oh shit. That without that, you're not going to be able to function on this planet, because people will always ask for too much. And if you can't stand up for yourself, especially with clients. This therapist, as far as I'm concerned, was as bad off as she was. The fact that he would let somebody sit there for, get this, 5 fucking years, 4 times a week, for an hour, at $100 a shot in 1970. Do you know how much money that was? I mean, that's a fucking Mercedes, and not the cheap one, the really nice one. And this guy is sat there letting this woman's life go on being miserable because he didn't know how to create one double bind, when it sounds so obvious to me. But every single client that comes in the door will give you the opportunity to do this. How do you use double binds? You listen to the generalizations that people say and realize every generalization will destroy itself. Not some of them, everyone, including that one. Because they're a function of language, not a function of experience. So the client who comes in and goes, well, I'm really uncertain about my future. What do you ask them? You go, are you sure? Right? See how that works? Doesn't that work good? So they come in and they go, I'm really uncertain about my future. And you go, are you sure about that? And they'll go, oh yeah. And bang, you anchor it. And you go, so when you think about your future, you're absolutely certain that you're going to be uncertain. And they always smile at you like, uh-oh. Because that's what double binds do. Double binds get you to stop talking stupidly. And they get you, therefore, that it's the first step to stop thinking stupidly. We having problems back there? Is everything okay? I know, you're supposed to put those on your ears. If you suck on them, it doesn't work. Although you got the joke, so you're doing fine without them. I find by the second and third days of my workshop that less and less people use the translating device. And you can always tell that, deep down unconsciously, I think people understand more language than they give themselves credit for. Every once in a while, that doesn't work out. When I was in Mexico, I did a nonverbal induction, like I did yesterday, where I just looked at somebody and zoned myself into a trance, and they went into a trance. And when I went like this, they closed their eyes, and then I said something to them, and they didn't respond. And I realized this person didn't speak any English, right? And so I had to yell. They had translators up in this big booth in the top. I had to yell, "Please tell him to wake up!" You know, and the translator said, "Wake up," and the guy went like this, and he looked around, and I looked at him and did it again. Because anything worth doing once is worth doing over and over again. What makes a double bind work? Be relentless. Like, you know, the person who says to you, I mean, people, because people always do it. People say to you, they go, "Well, I'm always making mistakes. You know, I just can't trust my own judgment." And you look at them and you go, "You seem pretty certain about that. What if you're wrong?" And they'll go to you, they go, "Well, I know, I've always made all these mistakes. I'm bound to make more mistakes." And I go, "Maybe this is one of them." See, all generalizations will flop on themselves, but you can't just do it with words. You have to hammer them. And you go, "Look, you can't trust your judgment. I can trust mine, so let's leave me in charge." Because obviously, you keep making the same mistakes over again, but you see, the thing is you may trust your judgment, or you may misjudge your judgment, but if you trust your judgment about mistrusting your judgment, maybe you should misjudge your judgment about misjudging your judgment and make different judgments about what it is that you don't know and yet haven't done yet. Because you see, at the level of their logic is only justifying one thing: the fact that they feel bad. And that's it. And they're using the fact they felt bad in the past to feel bad in the future unnecessarily. And this is a major problem here. Anyway, I crunched up. That was only part of the question. Where was I? Because I started with part 2. Let's see, what was part 1? Yesterday, you talked about double binds. Yes. Okay. Part 3, let's see here. You guys got to learn to write a little bigger. It's not that easy. It says, what are the language patterns to create double binds? If exists. Yes, if does exist. Those are the language patterns that create double binds. Got number 3 already. Let's see. Number 4. What does that say? How to solve a DB, that's double bind. Ooh, we're getting technical now. In a belief system of a client. Oops, we already did that too. Sorry. Sorry, I answered that question already. Should have asked that one first. Then I would have answered all 3 of the others too, though. I don't know. Just a major problem here. Let's see, what else have we got? Let's see. Could you describe NLP technique against jealousy? Yes, I could. Let's see. What else have we got? being too literal? Well, think about it. A jealousy has two parts to it. One is jealousy which is unrealistic, and one is jealousy that's realistic. Okay, those are two different things. You know, if you walk into your bedroom and your husband is in there and he's screwing some other woman, that's a pretty good time to get jealous, don't you think? In fact, I think it's a pretty good time to get violent. You know, it's also a good time to get a new husband. You know, if you come home and there are used condoms laying on the floor next to the bed, that's a pretty good time to get jealous. You know, and especially if you look at your wife and she goes, I don't know whose they are, then it's even a better time to get jealous. Now that's real different than people who are jealous when they know they're stupid. And I mean, and see, the question is, how do people make themselves jealous? It's not just jealousy, but anything that people do where they're making themselves have a worse relationship. It's hard enough to have a relationship. And people say, well, you need to base it on trust, but they don't tell you what to do about your distrust. And you see, when people are jealous, what they do is they think of something really wonderful and they imagine their spouse doing it with somebody else, as if they're there watching. So they see these pictures in their head. What they need to do is to pull the person out of the picture and step in it themselves. And they will feel a lot less jealous. That's it. Now, the other thing is they need to also make a decision about whether or not it's founded in their belief systems. Because let's face it, you know, there's lots of people that cheat in their relationships. And it's not worth making yourself crazy. There's nothing like a good fucking lie detector to sort that out. I keep one in my office. And, I mean, might as well. They're cheap nowadays. You can get a lie detector for a very reasonable price. If you have a laptop computer, you can buy Truster. Truster, you can get it at the Spy Shop. It's more reliable than a voice stress analyzer. And I'll tell you, you can sort some of these family relationships out just like that. Teenagers who are lying to their parents, wham, it's a cold thing. You can sit down and ask them 5 questions. Unlike most lie detectors, Truster does not have to be calibrated because it is not something that is based on your state of consciousness. It's based on the ultra high frequency vibrations of the cilia on the edge of the vocal cords, way outside of conscious control, way outside of hypnotic control. We have put people into deep trances and made them utterly believe something and then tell a lie detector, and they'll beat the lie detector, but they won't beat Truster. Just won't do it. It's a great piece of equipment. Works over the phone. So when the woman comes in and she goes, oh, I'm jealous all the time. I think it's so unrealistic. What do I ask her? The first question, where is your husband? go, he's at the office. I go, tell me the number. Tick, 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 tick. And I go, hello, Bob? He goes, yes. I go, hi, my name is Richard Bandler. I'm sitting with your wife, and she thinks she's jealous unrealistically. Do you think that's true? And he'll say yes. And I'll look at the lie detector, and half the time it comes out no. And I'll hang up the phone and I'll go, you're not being unrealistic. Then I'll introduce her to Mr. Baseball Bat. And I'll say, take this bat home, hold it over your husband, tell him to tell you the truth, change his behavior, or just pack your bags and get the fuck out of there. You can't base relationships on lies. I mean, the reason I've been married for so long, most musicians don't stay married for more than like a half an hour. And up until I met my wife, my longest relationship could be measured in minutes, not hours. And but you know, the thing is that you know, I feel better when I'm around my wife than when I'm away from her, and that's what good relationships are. Is that you learn how to do everything and enjoy them. I mean, I do a lot of things that I wouldn't do on my own. I would not go shoe shopping all the time by myself. But I enjoy being with my wife, and I don't care what she does. You know, I just have fun watching her do it. That's good enough for me. And, you know, and most people don't realize the purpose of having a relationship is to make your life better, not to make your life worse. If you have to build your personal relationships on lies, then, you know, you're just wasting your time. When you're 90 years old, you're going to regret it. Because you're going to think, I could have had real relationships. And that all the things that you do are going to be transitory. But the older you get, the more you realize that, you know, the quality of the time you spend with somebody is much more important than the activity. You know, that, I mean, you know, there's lots and lots of things. I'm just glad my wife doesn't play golf. That's all I can say. But she's... Otherwise, I'd have to hypnotize her and give her amnesia for the fact the game exists. I just can't get into that game. People are always trying to get me to enjoy that, but I'm just not into it. To begin with, golf is not an indoor sport. You teach us how to be hypnotized. Be, parentheses, hypnotized. The D is parenthesized. I'm not quite sure I understand why. Can you also, I'm sure, didn't I teach you how to be hypnotized already? Isn't that the whole first day it was? Didn't you guys know you were in a trance? I know some of you did. Somebody this morning said, gee, that first day I was really zoned out. That wasn't jet lag, by the way. You've all been in trances all the time. You know, when you're sitting at the stoplight and it changes and you don't, that's a trance. You know, you've been in trances when you're reading and people call your name and you don't hear them, that's a trance. You've all been in trances. That's not, being in trance is not the exception, it's the rule. The hard part's not getting people into trance. The hard part is getting people to focus it. The hard part is also getting people to come out of it. Some people in particular. Here it goes. Let's see here. Can you also teach us skills against hypnosis? Well, yeah, I can teach you one, which is the more you can hear language, the more you can defend yourself against hypnotic communication, against presuppositions, against all kinds of things. Because if you don't hear language, you don't stand a chance. The reason I developed the meta model, the reason I developed the patterns of the hypnotic techniques of Milton Erickson in that book, that is a handbook that's actually used by government agencies in the U.S. to defend themselves against verbal manipulation. Because you see, a lot of people said to me when I started teaching, they go, if you teach people this stuff, they'll misuse it. And the truth is, they're already misusing it. But once you educate people where they can hear presuppositions, where you can begin to hear hypnotic language, then there's something you can do about it. Otherwise, you're just simply going to respond to it. And if any country should know about being able to be manipulated verbally, it should be Germany. Fortunately, we're getting more sophisticated as a human race, so we don't let our political leaders con us as much. But, otherwise, bin Laden would be head of all the Arab countries in the world. All somebody would have to do is come up with a good cause and aim it in an anti-Semitic way, and the next thing you know, we'd have another world war. I'm hoping we don't this time. I'm hoping that they'll just go in a cave and find this guy snorting heroin, and some American guy is going to say, well, gee whiz, we can bring this guy to trial of a big political thing, or my gun can go off accidentally. Oops! And that'll be the fucking end of it. They'll put his head on a fucking stick. We'll get the fuck out of Afghanistan and get on with our lives. And, and hopefully, at 5 million a head, they'll get his lieutenants, too. I like this wanted dead or alive approach to this thing. I don't think they advertise it enough. I really think if these people in Afghanistan, because I've seen them living in total squalor, if they knew they could get $5 million for popping one of these 22 of the head terrorists, I think that they'd give it some serious thought. Jesus, everybody there's got a gun. I mean, you see 12-year-old kids sitting around with a gun. If they got a poster drop that said, bin Laden, these other 22 guys, pop one of them, you get $5 million, free trip, to Hawaii or something. They'd be going, thinking it over. You can buy all kinds of stuff. You could get a TV, a Nintendo set. They could have all kinds of things, Get yourself a nice car. They'd be driving around London with 5 wives, I don't think they advertise this enough. I think George Bush is onto something there. That, that when people do terrible things, then, they used to do it in the Old West, that, that somebody would rob enough banks, they put a wanted dead or alive poster out. This guy, is responsible not just for killing the people in the Pan Am building and the people in the Pentagon and the people in the planes. He killed people at the U.S. embassies. He's killed people all over the world. He's organized these events, of death, and of course he doesn't carry them out himself. So let's say, what do we call people who don't do things themselves? Wimps. Oh yes, I remember. This guy is a fucking pussy wimp, and yeah, he sits around with a machine gun, snorting heroin, going, okay, you go out and kill yourself on a plane. Let's see, and you go do this. Yeah, that's right. You put a bunch of bombs in a truck and drive into an embassy, right? At least he doesn't have to give people instructions twice. But see, to me, the fact that these people listen to him is founded on the fact that they're ignorant. And they're not intelligent enough to realize that this is pretty much a lose-lose situation. They tell them they're dying for wonderful causes. Well, excuse me, I don't think that wonderful causes, that that you die to defend yourself and to defend your family, and to put an end to bad things. Sometimes people have to die. But if nobody was out there, defending causes for no reason, instead, I think they should do things like, give them, have a couple of people take cattle shockers and work it out personally. Nobody has to die. Put them in a little arena, give them those, those zap guns, let them have at each other. But I mean, the fact that, here it is, we're in a new millennium, and we're starting the millennium out with, with more and more violence. At some point, it's our responsibility, because we're the ones that teach people. You don't teach masses of people things, you teach individuals things. And if everybody you contact you make smarter, then those people will make the people around them smarter. And maybe by the next time the millennium clicks over, we can stop having, what it must look like to people from outer space. This is the planet that's always attacking itself. We're always bombing our own planet. We're always blowing bombs up on our planet. We're always shooting each other on the planet. It must look completely insane. I mean, the other planets are going, look out for that planet. It hates itself. It's it's constantly trying to commit suicide. We test nuclear weapons. Excuse me, they work. We know that. Okay, we don't need to test them. People go, well, we have to find out if we can blow one up. Yes, is the answer. You don't need to test them. In fact, we don't really need them, because they're not going to help anybody. When they blew off the first atomic bombs, these rocket scientists at the U.S., let me tell you the sad truth. They did not know if the chain reaction would stop or not. They had no idea. And so they said, we'll try it and find out. Either the chain reaction will stop, or it will burn the atmosphere off the whole planet. Now, if I was faced with those two possibilities, there would be no nuclear weapons, because I would have never tried them. But these people, PhDs in physics, Oppenheimer, smart man, they tell us, obviously not, because he would have went, this is far too dangerous. But it was Oppenheimer, and then this one, a two-star general, went, oh, I can have the biggest bomb that was ever made, right? It's so big that, that it's really not worth using anywhere. I mean, to me, that they went, well, gee whiz, this is a great opportunity for us to become the most powerful warlords on the planet. And I think we have to go further than that. What we have to do is to place an emphasis upon, see, one of the best things that's going on is that, you know, even in Afghanistan, in the middle of fucking nowhere, people are on cell phones talking to each other. And they got laptops. They can actually find out what's going on. And then wars, not only are we not just getting pictures a month later, we're seeing people die. So we're beginning to learn what this is all about. Hopefully this will become a bad thing. That when people watch people burning alive in buildings and stuff, that they're going to think about this as something they don't want to do. Listen to the level of intelligence of these terrorists. You know, these terrorists that got on the airplanes, flew these motherfuckers into the Pan Am building, used their mileage plus cards. You know, so they could get a free fight later. I don't know about you guys. This falls under the category of stupid. Right? This guy looks at the other terrorists and says, you know, one more trip, and I get a free flight to Hawaii. So the other guy goes, wow, I'll use my card too. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but to me this is all a terrible waste. And where does waste come from? Waste comes from ignorance. How do you defend yourself against hypnotic communication? By understanding it, so that you have the choice of responding to what you want in a way that you want. And there's a real easy gauge. If you're starting to feel bad, you're doing the wrong thing. If you're starting to feel like you have limitations you don't want, you're doing the wrong thing. Here's a great double bind. If you must limit yourself, limit your limitations. That's the first limitation everyone should have. In fact, since I'm supposed to be the best hypnotist on the planet, and so far I haven't met anyone that's even in my league, to tell you the truth. Milton can't do nearly what I can do. But at the time he started, he was better than everyone else. That's for sure. But you see, knowledge should increase. But as the best hypnotist on the earth, I want to give every one of you the suggestion that for the rest of your life, you will never accept a suggestion that is not in your best interest over time. And if it ceases to be in your best interest, you'll stop it. Because you'll know, because you'll feel limited. Too many people hold on to the past too much. Did I get everything on this list? Oh no, I missed some of these. Oh, good. Teach us how to be hypnotized. That's past tense. I can't teach you how to go into a trance. I have to teach you how to have been hypnotized. And you also teach us skills against hypnosis. Well, there's two approaches. One, you can learn to be such a good hypnotic subject that you can give yourself suggestions against it. And the other one is you can become a devout Christian. In fact, so devout that you sacrifice your life and then you'll never be hypnotized again. because I get a lot of Christians in the U.S. They come up and they look at me with this totally hypnotized look. And they say, hypnosis is the devil's work. And I go, how the hell do you know that? And they go, it says it in the Bible. And I go, no, it really doesn't. I said, it says it in a new translation that was made by some ludicrous Christian group that claims to have been inspired by God, but I think was inspired by stupidity. But if you actually read the old text, there is nothing in there about hypnosis. Hypnosis has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and people have used it for ways of healing. I mean, even in the Old West, I like this. In the Old West in the United States, they used to take potatoes and make warts go away by taking the potato and rubbing it on the wart and telling people it would be gone in the morning. And I found out it still works. I do it with kids all the time. Kids get warts. I take a potato and I look them in the eye and I go, do you know about the magic part of potatoes? And they go, magic part of potatoes? I go, yeah, oh yeah. Slice the potato in half and go, look inside. And if you look just close enough, there's magic there. And you rub it on the wart and you go, you'll see it go away by morning. And, 99 out of 100 times it does. And the 100th time you have to do it twice. It's that thing about placebos. When I read about placebos, I was fascinated. In the United States and most countries, every drug you take is tested against placebos. 80 to 90% of the time, the placebos work to some degree as well as the drug. Now, with headaches, they found out that 8 out of 10 times, if you take a placebo, it works as well as a painkiller. And so my thing is just to be safe, you take 11. The doctor is laughing his ass off. Guess what? That works. When I tell patients, they come in and I show them the research. I go, here, read this. And they read all this research. I have all this stuff on placebos that was put together. It's a book almost this big. I look up the symptom. I have all the research done on that symptom. And they read through, and I said, what does that tell you? And they go, well, it says that people treat headaches with placebos. And I said, what it tells you, all of these things says at least 4 out of 5 times, placebos work as well as any drug that the doctors can give you. So I give them empty gelatin capsules, and I say, take 11 of these every day just to be safe. Say take 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and 5 at night so it lasts all night long. And they always look at me and they go, are you serious? And I said, research does not lie. Guess what the presupposition of that is? I do. Now, but you know what? Even if that doesn't work, then you up it to 13. And it's so wonderful is people come back in and they go, well, I still got a headache last night. And I go, well, we better up the dose. Obviously, it wasn't enough. People have had this happen so many times in their life by doctors. They expect it to work. And so therefore it does. This is the power of the belief systems people have. Having invalid beliefs is not necessarily a bad thing. It can work for you as long as you believe that placebos work. Now, here's the trick. Most people just wait for beliefs to happen. We don't have to do that. We know how beliefs are built. If I ask all of you in here, do you believe the sun is coming up tomorrow? You know the answer to that, right? Right? Even if you don't answer out loud, how do you know? How do you know the sun's coming up tomorrow? You imagine it, okay? So you have a picture, and when you look at that picture, you feel totally convinced, don't you? Right, let me ask you this, sir. Do you believe breathing is good? Is the picture in the same place as the sun? No, it's in a different place? Which one are you more convinced about? The sun. I'd think that one through. Hey, you know what? You may get up tomorrow and there's an eclipse, but if you don't breathe, you're fucked. Anyway, just a thought, just something to think about. But anyway, both of these constitute strong beliefs. Okay, and in your mind, there's a certain place where these kinds of pictures go. If I ask you about something you're unsure of, right? You know, so if I ask you a question, you know, do you know for sure what you're going to eat at lunchtime? You know, you may or may not know. Could be this, could be that. That picture is not in the same place the sun is it? I like that. He goes, they couldn't be further apart, could they? I mean, in your case, you had one totally over here and the other one totally over there. How did I know that? Because I watched. Yeah, that's right, because your eyes went this way and your eyes went that way. It's pretty obvious, but I'll tell you, it spooks clients out because they don't know about things like watching, let alone things like listening. So now, given that they're in a different place, when it's time to build a belief, say, if I'm going to take a placebo myself, the first thing I do is I make sure I believe it's going to work. So I put that placebo in the belief, and I go, I'll take this placebo, and in the morning, this is going to happen. And I do it deliberately. Why shouldn't we? It's just a way to give yourself a post-hypnotic suggestion. And one thing that we have ample evidence is that post-hypnotic suggestions are powerful. People get post-hypnotic suggestions that last for years and years. I had one client that was sent to me from the college, local college, and they have a center for learning disabilities. I don't think that's a very good name. Myself, I think They should call it the Center for Learning, but they call it the Center for Learning Disabilities. I guess that's based on their teaching skills. But they sent this kid to me, and this kid is 25 years old, and he cannot read, and they cannot teach him to read. And so he comes in and he says to me, he goes, look, he said, I don't think you can help me. I don't see how a hypnotist can help me. I'm stupid. And I said, if you're stupid and I'm smart, then you should leave it up to me. Double bind. He's fucked now because he can't say, well, I'm so smart that I know this isn't going to work. And I said, okay. I said, if I'm smart and you're stupid, then let me decide. Because lots and lots of stupid people can read. It's a fact. So being stupid isn't going to get in the way of your reading. I said something stupid is getting in the way of your being able to read. Because they're teaching you all the things you need, and for some reason you're not being able to. And I said, and I have a guess about what it is. And he said, what? And I said, well, no, I'm not going to tell you my guess. And I said, let's find out if or not it's correct first. And he said, how are we going to do that? I said, we can't. But he can. And he went, he? And I said, yes, him. Not you, him. And he went, huh? And I said, just close your eyes. I said, now what I want to do is ask your unconscious to do something that's important, to literally spin you back through time and find out what's getting in the way of your being able to read. You've grown up your whole life seeing words, having people say them. They've showed you the letters, they've sounded them out, they've gone through and showed you books, they've showed you things, they've done all the things they've done with other kids. But your unconscious knows how come it's unable to process this in some way where you can get information from the written page where the rest of the planet can. So now I want your unconscious to go back and find out what this is and let your conscious mind know in an instant. 1, 2, 3, now. And he went like this, and he opened his eyes, and he looked at me, and he went, gee, I haven't thought of it. He said, when I was in the 2nd grade, I was trying to read out loud, and this teacher made me sit down, walked up, grabbed my pencil, snapped it right in front of his face and said, you'll never learn to read. And he didn't. One post-hypnotic suggestion, years of a mysterious serious learning disability. Now, he had tests done. He had all kinds of psychological tests. They did neurological tests on this kid. They put him through every remedial program, but still he was functioning with one post-hypnotic suggestion by one idiotic teacher who not only said it, but they did it in a way where it stuck in his mind. They snapped something in front of his face, shocked him, put him in an altered state, and stuck a suggestion in. He was a little kid. He had no defense against it. But as soon as his mind was aware of it, it didn't help him to be able to read. Because insight does not produce change. What produces change? I took a pencil, picked it up, walked over to him, and snapped it in front of his face and said, "Now you will." Scared the crap out of him too, boy. But he was in the same position he was in the second grade. Now that he understood what made him do something, as long as it worked, I did the same thing. And suddenly, he began to learn to read without any problems at all. In fact, he was reading within a week, because all the stuff was already in there. The only thing that wouldn't let it out is one lousy idea. Now, the fact that people can give post-hypnotic suggestions like that is something you need to understand, because it means a lot of your clients come in, have really weird stuff going on. And if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense. But there's nothing about post-hypnotic suggestions that do. Parents say the weirdest things, just strange things. And say, "Don't let the bed bugs bite." Excuse me. Oh, that's right. As they close the door and it gets darker in your room, they go, "That's right. Don't let the bed bugs bite." Rock-a-bye baby in the tree top. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. Down will come baby, cradle and all, smashing on the ground, breaking everything, sleep peacefully. Then you wonder why later in life you get insomniacs. You know why? Because there's wind. That's all it takes. People are up all night. They go, "The wind keeps me awake. If it's not totally quiet, I can't sleep." Right? And you go, "Rock-a-bye, baby." And they look at you, and you can see it in their eyes. You go, "In the treetop." That's it. And they go, "What?" And I go, "That's it. Just in the treetop. Sound asleep, everything's fine now." You'd be surprised. I had one person whose nose was totally numb. Completely numb. They had been to the doctors. In fact, they were referred to me by a doctor. This in the United States is a medical disorder referred to as Pinocchiitis. I'm not making this up. And this doctor in Dallas is a specialist in this. And this guy was studying to be an opera singer, but his nose red all the time, and he had bad sinuses. And they were talking about operating, but they didn't think it would help because the guy felt his nose that was completely dub. And when he walked in, he sat down, and I thought this was got to be one of the all-time weirdest things I've seen in years. Because the guy came in, and he said his nose is numb, and I went, like that? I said, you can't feel that? And he said, no. And I said, that's really strange. And I said, how did you get this way? And he went, I just don't know. And I listened to that melody, and I went, I've heard that before. Nothing else he said was melodic like that, but this was melodic. And then I went back. And I heard somebody saying to a little kid, got your nose, little Bobby. And there it was. And I looked at this guy, and I said, did you ever have relatives that said, got your nose? And he looked at me with this look, and I said, because here it is, back. And he suddenly could feel his nose. Now tell me that's not weird. That's totally weird. But see, if you don't try weird things, you never find out. I don't know if this is what the cause was. I only know it worked. And I know if you really listen to people, it's worth trying. So I started trying it with a lot of other strange things just to find out if you could, in fact, just tell people to get over their problems to find out how often it worked. I had somebody who came in who told me, they said, well, you know, I have horrible fears. All the time I'm afraid. I think of all these terrible things that can happen. And I said, this is a terrible problem, wasn't it? And they went, huh? And I said, I'm sorry, what were you here for? And they went, I don't know, I can't remember. And I said, for the rest of your life. And I said, now, what are you thinking about doing tomorrow? And they said, I hadn't really thought about tomorrow. I said, now would be a good time to think about it. I said, let's try something interesting. I said, why don't you try, I don't know, how about swimming in the ocean? And I live in California. Big white sharks all over the place. But they don't bother you if you don't, like, lay on a surfboard and act like a dead seal. That's why they're always biting surfboards, you know. Did you guys ever think about it from the shark's point of view? Think about it from a shark's point of view. Sharks swimming around going, fuck, I'm hungry, man. And they look at the other shark, and the other shark goes, man, I'm hungry too. He goes, have you seen any dead seals, man? And the one looks around and goes, hey, look at that. Shaped like this, just like a surfboard, looks like a dead seal. Feet hanging off, just like the fins. Goes, there's a dead seal right there. In fact, there's a couple of them. They go, yeah, let me go up. I'll kill it, bring it down, we'll share it. What do you say? Some surfers up there like this, going like this. And suddenly they look, and a big eye comes out of the water and bites that fucking surfboard in half. You've seen it on the news over and over again. Right? Why don't they paint the bottom of the surfboard red? Iridescent red. And in fact, they started doing it, and they found out that sharks won't eat it. Jacques Cousteau. Here's another insane motherfucker. This guy is worse than a Freudian psychotherapist. He is going along in his boat, and he said, here we are following behind the whales. They are playing next to the boat, and they're swimming as fast as they can, like this, trying to get the fuck away from it. Can you imagine if you're a whale in the water, and this engine is going like that? The whale's going, Jesus fucking Christ, somebody's farting like crazy. And as they sail up to the whale takes its baby and lifts it up on its wing. Jacques Cousteau says, oh, this is because the whale is so proud of his young. He is showing it to us. No, it's not. It's because from the whale's point of view, things attack it in the water, like sharks. So what does it do with its babies to protect it? It lifts them out of the water so nothing can eat it. Not Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau is a Freudian psychologist. He's going, the mother is so proud of her young, she lifts it up to show us, you know, her beautiful baby. And she's really in there paddling with one fin, trying to get the fuck out of there, going, Jesus Christ, this motherfucker's going to eat my baby. But not Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau knows the ocean, you know. My favorite Jacques Cousteau one is the one where he's down there and they're swimming underwater, and he's like talking over the top of this film, and he's going, and the beauty of the sea eel is that it hides in the rock, and he goes, and it only comes out to eat something. And so he takes a little tiny piece of fish, holds it in front of this hole. This eel comes out and bites him on the hand. Right? You think the eel's going to go for the little piece of fish when it can have 4 or 5 fingers? The eel is not that stupid. Jacques Cousteau, on the other hand, he is that stupid. He did it not once, but over and over and over again. And he's going, look at the power of those teeth. They bit right through my glove. He's got a lot of money, but no sense. I mean, that falls in the category of a Bill Clinton, I think. I don't even want to get started on him. I mean, that's just proof that the democratic process has got problems, as far as I'm concerned. The fact he was elected not once but twice is a miracle to me. That's, I think, because people just couldn't think of who to vote for, and they weren't going to vote for Bob Dole. I mean, Bob Dole does commercials for, you know, Viagra. I mean, you know, you just really, guy who goes up and goes, I'm totally impotent. Can I be president? I mean, you know, I just don't think that's a really good ad. Plus, he always talked about himself in the third person. He went, yeah, Bob Dole wouldn't do that. And we said, excuse me, you are Bob Dole. And it's like, oh yeah? My wife didn't tell me that. But you see, to me, I'm always trying to get people to make sense. The clients that come in, of course I use double binds, but I get double binds to knock them out of their reality so that they will start to pay attention to things. Then the next thing I need to do is to do some erasing of personal history. Let's see, was that all of them here? I forgot. I got lost. Try to cover all of these points. points here. Let's see. What was the last thing? Is there a way of installing a protective shield against such moods and energies? So I must have left something out. A permanently pessimistic friend. I'm afraid that's an oxymoron. I'm sorry. It is. That's an oxymoron. If you have a pessimistic friend, they're not a friend, because a friend wouldn't be pessimistic all the time. You need to examine your decision strategy. That you happen to know somebody who's totally pessimistic, then you need to make fun of them and not listen to them, because if you listen to them, go. When one doesn't want to lose and leave, and whom one can't cure either. Well, you can't cure someone who's not sick to start with. Pessimism is not a disease. It's just massive stupidity. Because the problem with being pessimistic is it's self-fulfilling prophecy. You hypnotize yourself into believing that everything's going to get worse, and it will. If you're looking for what can go wrong, you will find it. And the thing with pessimistic people is that you can't take them seriously, because the only reason they get away with this crap is because of their tonality. So you need to learn to repeat everything they say in Bugs Bunny's or Sylvester the Cat's tonality, so that when they come in and they go, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you go, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and you'll never feel as bad about what they do. It's the best protective shield against anyone with bad tonality. That when people come in and tell you things like, they come in and they say, you're nothing but a stupid fraud. You go inside and go, you're nothing but a stupid fraud. You're not going to feel as bad. It's just that simple. I teach lots and lots of my clients to do this, especially young teenagers who have bad parents. Sometimes I get the teenagers as clients. They're referred by the court system, but their parents don't have to go. And I always tell the judges, if I can talk to the judge, I go, look, the reason this kid's screwed up is because his parents are fucking assholes and they're stupid. Send the parents in. Let me work with the parents, and I'll bet you the kid will change on his own. But they always go, well, we can't do that. It's not within our jurisdiction. In which case, you have to teach kids how to defend themselves against adults. So, to me, the best self-defense course is to learn to repeat what people say to you, so that you respond to your own internal dialogue rather than to somebody else's tone of voice. So that you don't respond, because you see, even with hypnotic suggestions, if people are saying things to you, about how the world is going to get worse and how depressing the future is going to be, these people in existential crisis, because pessimists are always on the edge of being Marxists, as far as I'm concerned. They'll tell you the system makes them feel bad. What system? We've never had any system of any government that's lasted for any length of time. I think the best example of what government is really like is Italy. They've had a different government every 3 weeks down there. Ever since the end of the Second World War, they just can't make up their mind. The rest of the governments actually keep the same people in power, but they still can't make up their minds. So it looks as if they're more stable. But, I mean, I don't really find that human beings are stable in general, nor do they need to be. But they need to aim their instability so that it has a direction. Pessimists aim themselves towards getting worse. And here's the problem. People are either getting better or they're getting worse. There ain't no middle ground. Human beings don't stay the same. They're either getting happier or they're getting unhappier. Period. So it becomes vitally important that you teach people how to be able to tell the difference between the two. And this is really important. So one of the things I wanted to do this morning, let's see if I have time. Oh yeah, lots of time. That's right. We started an hour earlier today. But I should adjust my watch. Because, I did adjust my watch. I'm going to be fucked up today, I can tell. Yesterday I switched watches because I have an English watch and then I had a watch on the time here. But at lunch I switched watches, so I was totally confused. Which means, I ended up going to bed later, waking up earlier. And in the middle, I watched a movie. Ronnie got me a DVD player because I was tired of watching CNN. I can only take so much of this CNN because CNN is made for people who only have 15 minutes of awareness. And then they run it through again. It's as if they think we have no memory at all. We go, oh, what just happened? Oh, yeah, there's a war in Afghanistan. Yeah, we blew up a Red Cross building again. Oh, yeah. Let's see, we haven't found Bin Laden, and let's see. And if you get envelopes with white powder, don't snort it. I know what you've been up to. I know that there's a lot of friends of mine in the U.S. that are probably really depressed about this, too. A lot of my friends grew up because I grew up in the 60s in San Francisco, and a lot of my friends are musicians. And the idea that people are sending white powder back and forth that can kill you probably isn't a new idea. Anyway, I wanted to start this morning. There's a technique that I want to demonstrate to you because it's one of the things that's along the lines of what we've been talking to. Now, I realize I started out. This is where we started. We started out saying, okay, the first thing to do is to relax because I think people are far too tense. Period. Then we said, okay, now as long as you're relaxing, maybe you should feel good. So we said, okay, go from relaxation to feeling good. Now, once you get people feeling good, that's the time to begin to teach them about erasing the power of personal history. You don't have to have amnesia for what happened. I mean, that's not going to help you if suddenly because I tried that. I have to admit, it causes trouble. Somebody sent me this guy. And when he came, I said, what can I do for you? And the guy said, well, I want to quit smoking. I have emphysema, and my doctor said if I don't quit, I'm going to die, which seemed to me like a pretty good reason to quit smoking. And he said, but I've tried everything. He said I took a nicotine gum. He said, I smoked fake cigarettes. He said, I took Wellbutrin, which is that Zyban stuff, which is pretty good to take just that now and then anyway. It kind of gives you a lift. But this guy was taking Zyban and smoking. And the Zyban was supposed to make it so he wanted to quit, but it didn't. It just made him so he wanted to take Zyban more. So he said, is there anything you can do? And I don't usually work with stuff like quitting smoking. I figure any hypnotist can do that. I'd tried stuff in the past. I made one time, this guy, I asked him, I said, what's the worst taste you can possibly imagine? And the guy said, cod liver oil. He said, when I was a kid, if I did something bad, my mother used to make me drink cod liver oil. And I said, okay. And so I put him in a trance, and I said, okay. Every time a cigarette approaches your lips, gets anywhere near your lips, I said, you're going to smell cod liver oil. And I said, and if you touches your lips, you're going to taste cod liver oil. And I said, and every time you think about a package of cigarettes, you're going to think cod liver oil. I woke the guy up and I handed him a cigarette. I said, do you want this? And the guy went, yeah. Guy comes back, because I always have people come back just so I can check on them. I don't like to just always do it on the phone. But the guy came back and he walked in my office and I said, have you been smoking? And he said, I want to thank you. He said, you know what? He said, I have not smoked a cigarette all week. I haven't wanted a cigarette. I've watched people smoking. I haven't been inclined to smoke. And then he stopped and he opened his pocket. He reached in and he pulled out a bottle of cod liver oil, opened it, took the hit off of it, closed it, stuck it back in his pocket, and kept talking like this was normal behavior. And I went, and I said, excuse me. I said, what? Was that cod liver oil? And he said, yeah. He said, you know, I've kind of developed a taste for it. And I thought, uh-oh. Because if you keep drinking cod liver oil, you're going to have problems, different kind of problems. They won't be oral problems. They'll be anal problems. But, you know, you'll be farting like a fish. So we had to go in and do a little correction there, you know. And you see, it's not that you don't make mistakes. It's not that I haven't made mistakes with clients. It's only that you notice that you make mistakes that's important.